Well, see, some of our desires are for things that are destructive to ourselves. So here's a really good example. You know the famous poet John Milton? Do you know who he was? He wrote the greatest epic poetry in the English language. He's one of the greatest poets in the entire history of the Western world. Well, although it was clear from a very early age that he had a vocation to poetry, and although he believed he had a vocation to poetry, in his adult life, here's what happened. The Puritans, a certain sect of Protestants, took over the government in England, and Milton had as his heart's desire being part of that Puritan government. He wanted to be a minor government official. He wanted to be, like a clerk in the government office, writing up documents, drawing up decrees. This is the stupidest waste of a great epic poet you can possibly imagine. So that was his heart's desire. Okay, now that heart's desire is inimical to his flourishing. See? Okay, so if God gave him that heart's desire, if the Puritans had stayed in power, Milton had continued in the Puritan government, he would never have written anything, and nobody would have remembered him. Do you know how many hundreds of pages he wrote of stupid government stuff that nobody cares about at all anymore? Right, okay, so here's what did happen. The Puritans fell from power, and Milton was completely heartbroken when they did, because he lost his heart's desire, which was to promote the Puritan cause. When the Puritans fell from power, here's what happened to Milton. In the first place, he lost his eyesight writing all these stupid little political things for the Puritans. And when the Puritans fell from power, the new government that came in branded Milton public enemy number 12 or something. And they took all his property and they put him on a list of people to be killed, so he was on the run. He was on the run. In that condition, he wrote Paradise Lost, Paradise Regained, and Samson Agonistes, his greatest works, far and away his greatest works. So there's a case where he had heart's desires that were inimical to his flourishing. He lost his heart's desire, God didn't give him to him, and as a result he had this great flourishing. His poetry is religious poetry. He says in Paradise Lost that his whole purpose is to justify the ways of God to man. That's the point of it. It's a marvelous work for the Lord. Okay, so now what about his heart's desire? Okay, watch this. The Puritans are widely regarded as bad guys in the history of Christian tradition. Stupid, foolish, mean, crabbed. People don't like them. You want to put somebody down, what do you say to them? Well, that's pretty puritanical. We don't want to be puritanical, do we? Okay, we don't want to be like them, do we? Okay, but guess what? Is there anybody that the Puritans can show us that will give all of us pause in that evaluation of the Puritans? Sure, John Milton. If John Milton loved them that hard, there's got to be something more to those Puritans than we ordinarily think. So look at it. Look at it. If he'd stayed in the Puritan government, how would he have promoted the Puritan cause? A little tiny bit. He lost his heart's desire, suffered horribly, flourished beautifully in his poetry, and got his heart's desire in this funny way in the end, see? So that's another kind of story of the Mary of Bethany sort. So what does this say about our heart's desires? What does it say about our heart's desires and love for the Lord? Okay. Well, God built us so that we aren't like the angels. We're made out of matter. This house, this tree, my grandmother's earrings, the cup my mother gave me when I graduated from school, all these things, this things, this daughter, all these things, they call forth deep love in us because we're made out of matter, we're local. We're built to love these things, not everything, but these things. These people, not everybody. Okay, that's how God built us. And we don't flourish if we don't love in that way. And so how do we reconcile what God meant us to be with love for Him? Like this. We weave our love for these things into our love of the Lord. We weave them together, and this is the way we do it. We take everything we love as gift from Him. As gift from Him. Every good thing and every suffering is gift from Him, and all of it is meant to be given back. See, in his suffering, in his terrible suffering, Milton didn't say, okay, that's it, I'm finished with God, I'm out of here. What he did was use that terrible suffering to reflect on suffering and put his reflections into this glorious form of poetry for God, service to God. And in the process, got his heart's desire. See? Or another way to think about it is think about it from a parenting point of view. If your child says to you, I want that, and it's something really bad, well, you're not going to give it to him. You're not giving him the poison apple or something, or the crummy candy at Halloween with no wrappers on it. You know, you take it away. But here's what you do: you try to give them something that is their heart's desire. You try to work with the heart's desire in them. John Locke, who never had any children, the famous philosopher John Locke, who had never had any children, said, "The fact that a child asks for something is by itself a reason not to give it to him." Yeah, crummy guy, good thing he never had any children. Yeah. Really, you know, if you love somebody, their wanting something is by itself a reason to give it to them, insofar as you can, compatibly with their flourishing. That's what it is to love somebody, to care about what they care about. Works that way for us with our children. We are God's children, works that way for Him and us too. So if you are trying to love only God and nothing else, you're going to find that you don't really love Him, you're just making a mess out of yourself. That's not how you were built to be. See?